Okay, great. No, that's so cute. Hi, everyone. Okay. So good evening, everyone. I'm David Appleton. I'm the undergraduate and graduate program manager for Sport Coaching Leadership. I want to welcome you to our webinar series for today, the first day of December. I can't believe it. We're very excited today to welcome Nyree Dardarian, who's going to be speaking to us specifically about sports nutrition, translating science to practical application for professional sports teams. I just want to draw a couple just points to your attention that future webinars coming up Tuesday, December 8th at 6 p.m. We're going to be having part 2, culinary nutrition, the role of a personal professional chef in an athlete's home. And then on Tuesday, December 15th, 6 p.m. Eastern time, we'll also have sports nutrition and performance chefs, the bridge between science and application. Past webinars can be found here at this website below. I'm going to post it in the chat after I stop sharing my screen. And without further ado, I'd like all of us to take a moment and welcome Nyree Dardarian. Welcome. Let me just stop my.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me okay? All right, so just give me 1 second. I am going to now share my screen with you. Okay, are you seeing my slides okay?
Yep, that's great.
Okay, excellent. So I'm going to introduce myself for those of you who don't know me. And I also would love all throughout this webinar, when you feel like you have a question, you can put it in the chat room. And I'll try to answer as many questions as I can tonight. So my name is Nyree Dardarian. I am an assistant clinical professor in the Department of Nutrition Sciences at Drexel University. I also am the director of the Center for Nutrition and Performance, and 2 of my co-directors are on watching this as well. So shout out to Kelsey and Andrea. Thanks for being here and always being supportive. It's our team that really makes this whole thing really work. So as the director of the Center for Nutrition and Performance, we are able through Drexel to work with teams besides Drexel's athletics. So yes, we do provide all the nutrition support for Drexel athletics, as well as some of these other teams you see here. So I work with the Flyers, the Philadelphia Union, who did make it to the playoffs and, didn't end up as well as we had wanted, but we had a really nice time trying to get there and performing. And US squash and also USA field hockey we've worked with. So there's been a lot in our repertoire and a wide range of sports that we work with and a wide range of ages. So we're dealing with the 18, 19-year-old, which we still consider adolescent, that comes into the university setting, and all the way up until 30, 33-year-olds, maybe, who are still playing in professional sports. You can follow me at Nyree Dardarian on Twitter and on Instagram, and also at Drexel Nutrition on both of those as well. So this is the first part of a 3-part series, and our 3-part series is examining the intersection of sports nutrition science and culinary meal preparation in professional sports environment. Also here watching tonight is Rachel Muse. Rachel is going to be doing the next session, which is really focusing on the performance chef side of things. What does a performance chef do? And how then the last series is, do we integrate with one another to not only come up with a meal plan, but execute it for athletes at the highest level. Rachel works in the United Kingdom. She has been working with some of the most elite footballers that are part of the EPL. So, she showed me around town. We visited Liverpool. We've been to Southampton, and we've had some great times together. So Rachel, thank you too for being on here today. So this is the first part. And so I'm just showing you this slide right here because this slide is about the World University Games. I don't know if anybody knows much about it, also called Universidad. So I've been a part of these games for several years now, since 2015. So from those years, we've been to South Korea. I think this picture was taken in South Korea. And I find this so interesting, this picture, because this is true application of what sports nutrition is. There was a cereal bar out every day for these athletes, and boy, was it busy. Look at all those boxes of cereal that are down there. So I'm going to come back to this later, but the importance here is that athletes need a lot of volume of food, and they really love cereal. And it is one of the best ways to get carbohydrates in with a protein source and casein protein, which helps with muscle restoration. So that's why I love this slide so much. So throughout this talk, I'm going to go through different stages. So the first is just principles of sports nutrition. I'm going to keep this very in the application translation zone, but I am going to go through some of the basics of sports nutrition, and then going over the value and the role of the coach to promote a healthy eating environment that is on and off the field, how to adapt nutrition needs to training and travel schedules, and how to talk with a sports nutrition with your team, how to really connect with your team about sports nutrition and understand the real value that is there. So what is a high performance athlete? So research on elite performance athletes has indicated that there are certain nutrients as well as behaviors that are more compatible with performing at a high level. Sometimes, as you might know from, I looked at some of the people here that are on the list, we are working with athletes who are performing at the highest level. And sometimes what they do comes very natural, and that's why they are where they are. But everybody can use a little bit of a tweak, whether it's tweak of the environment, tweak in their schedule, or what it is. Now, what can nutrition do? Well, nutrition is going to increase your performance at the maximum of 5%. Okay. But 5%, well, that's a lot. That's a lot when you are at the end of a period, when you are in overtime. That is when nutrition really kicks in. Anyone have any questions so far? Okay. Okay, so the principles of sports nutrition. The idea here is that we want to keep athletes in good condition before, after, and during exercise to achieve optimal performance. So a lot of times parents or coaches will say, what are we going to do on game day? What should we do? Like, what's the best way to eat on game day? And really my response is game day is too late, right? If you are not practicing at your best, then you are not going to perform at your best on game day. So focusing on nutrition around game day comes second to focusing on nutrition every day, so that when you get on that field for training, when you get on that field for practice or the ice, whatever that field is, you're ready to work at your highest level. And if you can work at the highest level on those days, then you can perform at the highest level on game days. So there are a few things that we take into consideration when we talk about optimal nutrition for athletic performance. And the foundation of all of this is to consume adequate energy and nutrients. Now, this sounds very simple, but it's not that simple. It is actually the one thing that is studied over and over again, especially in the collegiate sports area, where energy consumption does not meet energy needs. And that is the basic problem. So the truth is that unless you build on that foundation, making sure that the athlete is consuming the right amount of energy, then you really can't move forward from that. So we're going to focus on a little bit of that today. And then we want to maintain an appropriate body composition, which means that those ratios of energy coming from the macronutrients, carbohydrates, proteins, and fat need to be distributed well so that body composition doesn't shift. And then we want to promote optimal recovery. And at the same time, through all this, maintain hydration. So there's a lot of different things that are going on. But at the very core of it, I don't want to neglect the fact that the bottom, the foundation of this entire setup, this entire, I don't know what we want to call it, but pyramid to come, you need a good base, and that base is going to be total amount of energy and that distribution of the macronutrients. So most of today's talk is going to be really focusing on, I'm going to be talking a lot about just visuals. So I'm going to give you a lot of application here. So the visuals are going to be very strong here. But in addition to those very strong visuals in the translation of nutrition into real life, I do want to show you in this slide, and this is my only scientific slide, okay? And I'm only putting this in there so that you can get a general feel for where energy is coming from, because there are three different macronutrients that we just talked about. We've got protein, we got carbohydrates, and we got fat. And everybody knows this, but the one nutrient that is going to translate its use quickly and most directly to energy, which is ATP, is going to be the carbohydrate. So you can see that right here. The glucose from the carbohydrate is going to be distributed directly into ATP. ATP is energy. I am not going to talk anymore about that, but I just wanted you to get a general idea of where I'm coming from when I start this whole discussion off, really focusing in on those carbohydrates. So just an example here. All right, what are carbohydrate needs? So if someone was going to be doing 30 minutes of easy walking, they need about 25 grams of carbohydrate. Well, what does that mean? Who wants to tell somebody, who wants to tell an athlete you need 25 grams of carbohydrate? What does that translate into? But if you do 45 minutes of moderate running, you need 75 grams. That is something like an apple and a sandwich. When you move into 60 minutes of hard running now, you need about 125 grams of carbohydrate. Well, what does that look like? That looks like even more. We're almost doubling it. And when we get to the 120 minutes of interval running, an athlete needs about 200 grams of protein to replenish the energy that they lost during that training. So what does 200 grams of carbohydrate look like? Well, that's where I'm coming in here today. I'm going to discuss how we take some of these numbers, and we simplify it just a little bit so that coaches, administrators can understand that the culture of food has to be at the bottom of all of this, and nobody is going to be calculating their 200 grams of carbohydrate. But I just want you to see the difference here, because most of the people that you are all working with are at that highest level where they need to replace that 200 grams of carbohydrate. And sometimes if you listen to some of these other diets that are out there, such as a low carbohydrate diet, they don't even recommend consuming more than 100 grams of carbohydrate per day. So this just shows you how much carbohydrates are needed. So the carbohydrate. Okay, this is just to show you where all this is stored. So where is it going to come from? So the average 70 kilogram male has about 1,500 to 1,600 calories stored in the body of carbohydrate. So this is what they're going to use. So this is stored in the liver, the majority of it. The muscle is the majority. We've got 300 grams stored in muscle, ready for usage, because that's where it's going to come from. The liver has some more, like 80 grams there in the liver. And when the muscle starts running out, it calls on the liver, hey, liver, we needed some carbohydrate, send it out, we need energy. And blood glucose, though, does not have a lot. That has the lowest amount, and that is tightly regulated. So it's going to pull from muscle to enter bloodstream, or to get from bloodstream into muscle. The thing about athletes is the more conditioned they are, the more carbohydrate they can store. So they are able to up some of those areas. So the liver can probably double the amount of carbohydrate storage if an athlete is used to eating carbohydrates regularly and is able to also train at a level where the body is then taught to expand the amount that it can store. Okay, so carbohydrates are the primary fuel. Why? How does this work? Well, if it's not there, if there aren't enough carbohydrates there, we will result in a hypoglycemia. So that means that fatigue will come faster during exercise. Other issues of hypoglycemia and fatigue occur mostly in high intensity and long duration exercise. Carbohydrates are essential for optimal performance before, during, and after exercise. So they must be spaced out, they must be used so that during each of those phases, we are replenishing what was lost. Why are they the preferred energy source? Well, number one, less oxygen is required to metabolize it compared to fat. So therefore, it is a more efficient fuel than fat. Can fat be a source of energy? Yes, it can, but carbohydrates are a more efficient source of this energy, so we need it. This allows for more rapid ATP production than the fat has in both aerobic and anaerobic situations. Muscle glycogen is the preferred energy source for the body. The liver uses it to replace depleted stores. So we really need to keep this stream coming in so the body is conditioned to go towards carbohydrates and not other sources when competing. Okay, that's my science breakdown. Now we're going to put this into application. Does anybody have any questions right now? I'm going to take a drink break. Oh, I do have some chats. Give me a second. I'm going to look at these. Okay, it's David. David, thank you. Please feel free, everybody, to put any questions you have as we move along in the chat room. I know that there's a lot of interesting people here tonight. I looked at the list of those who joined. I don't know if everybody is here right now. I do want to also say hi to Rachel from USA Rowing. How are you, Rachel? If you're there, I don't know. And then I wanted to point out Zachary. Zachary, you're from Washington State University. I just read a fantastic book about the whole football scene, college football scene at Washington State, and learned a lot about Coach Leach. And I don't know if anybody knows these stories, but it was quite fascinating. And I'm not someone who really regularly likes to just read books about sports, but this is a fantastic one. It's called The System, if you are interested in reading that. So Zachary, shout out to you. I feel like I know Pullman simply through reading this book. Okay, so where are we now? We want to build a culture around nutrition. That is what makes a team function well when food is there. We want to know that food is not scarce. We want to know that food is the option. We don't want to lean towards supplements. We want to lean towards food, and we can make this a culture. This particular fella here, this is Jack. Jack is on the Philadelphia Union. He's a fantastic athlete. He has this ritual of eating bananas on toast with some peanut butter before he starts the day. I love it. We work with him. We upped it a little bit. You can tell Jack could put on a few pounds, but he is one of those ectomorphs, and he's not going to gain a lot of weight, but he sure does have a lot of energy. So this is just a picture here that shows, we're in here. We're in this dining room. We're talking with athletes every day, and we're making little tiny tweaks by being there every day. You can't make tweaks by showing up once a month and being, someone's put a question in the chat, not in the chat room, but had submitted question before this webinar. And the question was, how do you gain trust in an athlete? Well, it's being around them, and it's getting to know them and getting to know their own styles, because everybody is not going to eat the same. There are many things that shift when it comes to athletes. So, people talk about individualized nutrition planning. So what does that mean? When I hear individual nutrition planning, this is what comes up to me. There's a person who is an athlete. We have studied nutrient needs, protein needs, carbohydrate needs extensively in athletes. Is that going to shift dramatically from one athlete to another? It's not a dramatic shift. It really isn't. We know the calculations. We have the algorithms. We can figure out what an athlete needs pretty darn close to what any sort of scientific tools will tell us. However, the one thing that we can't measure is that social aspect. What are their taste buds? That is the biggest variable. What do they like to eat? What are they accustomed to eating? What are their traditions? What are their religions? These are the things that we really need to dive into, and that is the biggest variable of all. So if you want to connect with an athlete, those are the things you need to be thinking about. You need to think beyond just how many grams of protein does somebody need. More like, what is the protein source that athlete likes? What is the carbohydrate source? Are there any restrictions in their diet? And accommodating those variables is what makes nutrition, sports nutrition, individualized and customized. But having said that, of course, we have to make general guidelines for the majority, okay? So this is an example of what a full day of nutrition planning would look like if there was a 9 a.m. kickoff. So for the Philadelphia Union, we created this. This is one of the handouts we give to the athletes, and this is posted in their training center on the big TVs, just to let people know, what does this really look like? So we work backwards. If game time is at 9 a.m., then we need to eat something. We need to eat something around 7 a.m. That's when breakfast starts. And I'm going to go through this more step by step, but this is just a snapshot to show you what that day that is geared around a game looks like. Then we have a glycogen top off. It means we need some really quick energy because you warmed up, and that warm up took some of your energy, some of your glycogen away. So we need to add back what we used. Game time kicks off. We need some fluid, During the game, we need to be drinking something, whether it's a Gatorade, or maybe you could use some chocolate milk. After, we want to have a snack. We want to refuel. We want to replenish. Even after that, we want to replenish once again with some more fluid. And then you see throughout the day, you want to be restoring the glycogen that was lost during that game so that you are ready to perform at your peak the next day during training. Or maybe the next day there's another game. So you need to be on top of this. You can't just fall asleep. Eating at this level turns into a job. And I often say to athletes, when you go to the doctor's office and he gives you a prescription and it's for medicine, you take it. But when you go to the nutritionist and she gives you a prescription for eating, you say, I was too tired to get up out of my bed today to eat, or I needed a nap more. Well, the truth is that is the prescription. The prescription is eating for performance. This is a lot of information, and I do not expect you to be reading all of this, but this is to show you what the menus that when I work with the Philadelphia Union, and Kelsey has been making these lately, and it is so at the Philadelphia Union, we provide breakfast and lunch every day. So what that menu looks like. One of the approaches we use here is setting up each day for the nutrients that they need based on match day. So if match day is Saturday, see here, you can see, I don't know if you can see my pointer. So we have a Saturday match day. That means that match day -1, that's a day that we promote eating fast carbs, simple carbohydrates, and lean proteins. So that entire day is set up that way. What I would like to point out is that you will see there is always fruit. There are always multiple options of carbohydrates because we don't know what people want that day for the carbohydrate. And we know that this is really important. So we try to make sure that we have multiple options so that the athletes are getting in the carbohydrate that they need. In fact, we set the buffet up in such a way to encourage the athletes to eat more protein. And so when I talk about, carbohydrate. So when I talk about the culture, developing a culture, this is the ideal example. At the Philadelphia Union, when you walk up to the buffet, the first thing you're going to see are plates that are huge. It was funny at first when we implemented these plates at the Union, which are 12-inch in diameter plates. It was hysterical because the guys started using them as Frisbees in the training center, chucking them around the training center. They thought that this plate was so funny. How could we have such a big plate? But there was a purpose. And the purpose was that if you have a big plate, you're going to fill it. It's the exact opposite purpose of people who are trying to lose weight and they are trying to eat off of smaller plates. So that was an environmental adaptation that led to change. Do you know 1 month later, nobody laughed at the size of the plates? In fact, they expected that size of plate. After about a month of those plates, when they went other places and they had small plates, they were wondering why the other plates were so small. So we increased the size of the plate. The next adaptation was flipping the buffet. So instead of starting with a salad and then leading into proteins and then leading into the carbohydrate, we completely flip this thing upside down. The first thing a player will walk up to are carbohydrate options. There will be 3 of them. So he will or she will most likely fill up the majority of that plate with carbohydrates, which is exactly what we want them to do. But what we don't want them to do is to focus on this. So making these little changes will cause the athlete to make the decisions based on the environment that they're provided with that are better decisions for them to perform at their optimal level without thinking about it. Because the athlete does have enough to think about. We don't want them to be only focusing on how many grams of carbohydrates they're going to eat. We know that if we set up this really big plate and we start the buffet off with carbohydrates, they're going to be getting enough carbohydrates. They're going to be naturally filling their plate the way that we want them to fill it. So that's one of our approaches. Next in line are vegetables, and the protein is at the end. Why? Why is the protein at the end? Because they really only need at maximum 6 to 8 ounces of protein, and that doesn't take up much of the plate. So that's the last thing they put on their plate before they go sit down at a table. But at the table, what we switched around in this situation is we put things in the center of the table that are family style. Things like juices, so that they get extra calories in from juice that is available to them right at the table without having to get up, because simplicity is so essential in this environment. The other thing that we put in the middle of the table, yogurt, little yogurts. Now, we had a refrigerator full of little yogurts. Nobody would touch it. You put it on the table. If everybody's done eating and they want a little something after they're finished eating, guess what? They eat the yogurt. Also, fruit was served on the table. So the fruit was always on the table in family style so that the athletes would have the fruit without having to get up one more time. Because believe it or not, that barrier of having to get up and going to the buffet one additional time will be a deterrent in the total amount of intake that they consume during that meal. Okay, so you get an idea of what that flip buffet looks like. And now you get an idea of how we manipulate the day-to-day macronutrients in the menu. So we're making these manipulations. They're really just saying, oh, today we have blackened mahi tacos. But the truth is that day we're providing healthy fats. That's our focus on match day -2, and slow and fast carbs. So we're mixing it up. Slow carbs are more leaning towards what you would call refined carbohydrates, like the white rices, the white pasta, and the fast carbs. I'm sorry, that's the fast carbs. And the slow carbs are any carbohydrate that has a higher fiber content. So the whole wheats, whole wheat pasta, whole grain, brown rices, those end up in that category. So we're really not eliminating anything from the diet. We are just manipulating the days that they get to eat those foods. But all in all, nobody will say, I feel deprived of eating a particular food. They're not deprived of eating anything. It's just put into a format that will lend itself to their best performance. Okay, so I'm going to start here with the benefits of eating before exercise. So before exercise, some of the things that we want to make sure that we're focusing on is we want to finish filling up muscle glycogen. So we want to provide enough carbohydrate in the pre-exercise eating to fill up the muscle glycogen stores and top off the liver glycogen stores. The more glycogen that is stored, the longer the athlete will be able to perform, or it takes a longer time to reach fatigue. And that's really what our goal is. This will minimize the risk of developing hypoglycemia. It'll provide fuel during the early part of exercise. It'll settle the stomach. We don't want an athlete to ever grumble of hunger pain or have a sense of hunger before they start exercising. And it also provides the psychological edge, like, I'm ready, let's do it. And we want to keep them well hydrated. So that's the pre-exercise. What does that look like? Well, here's a fueling station at the Flyers. Now, they eat, of course, a few hours before starting a meal, but then, starting training. But then what happens is, after training, or even after a warm-up, that activation that happens in the training center before they hit the ice, we need to get a little bit more. We need to top off this glycogen, and that's where our fueling station comes in. So we have a bunch of different foods assorted from drinks through bars, or even smoothies, or pre-workout little shots of extra nutrients that we provide here to get them topping off that glycogen before they hit the ice.
Nyree, can I ask you a question? There's a chat box question. It says from Cheryl, what do you do in the off season to increase the probability of adherence to your meals plans when the athletes go home for the season?
Well, we keep in touch with our athletes. I think that's one very important thing that we do. So, I mean, right now I'm in contact with many of the Flyers, especially the younger people who are trying to gear up and get ready for the upcoming season. There's no real off season for professional athletes. There might be an off week, but they're always training, and they have their trainers that are in their hometowns that they're always working with, and they will always stay in connection with me or whoever the nutritionist is. So one is staying connected. Another one is finding ways to get them meals that they don't have to really think about preparing. So we do make a lot of suggestions in pre-made meals, delivered meals that they can choose, going from the heat and serve or the make it yourself, but it's a box that comes to your house and you prepare it. So we teach them kind of what to order extra portions, and how to keep that level of food along with the training, because there's very little downtime truly in off season. They might take a week or two off, but I really don't see more than that ever happening in any of the at the professional level. Does that answer your question, Cheryl? Okay, so this is, what does it look like? What does a meal look like 4 to 6 hours before exercise? Now, we want to get in a meal that has about 300 grams of carbohydrate. That's actually on the low level, and up between 30 and 40 grams of protein. So this is what that could look like, okay? Now, again, this is what I'm saying, what it could look like. But does the athlete like that? And what Rachel is going to be talking about, or when we're going to be speaking together, we're really going to talk about the synchronicity of taking that prescription of 300 grams of carbohydrate and 40 grams of protein and manipulating it into a food that the athlete wants. How do you do that? So every day, an athlete is not going to eat roasted chicken breast with broccoli and rice. Okay, that's not going to happen, because that's what we suggest. They want to eat all the foods that are available out there. And that is where a private chef comes in. I should have added that. I'm sorry, Rachel. One of the other ways that we make sure that athletes are eating well in the off season is with a private chef. My goodness, I'm awful. Rachel, sorry. So a lot of the athletes at this elite level are able to hire services like an in-house private chef to be providing all of those meals and translating that 300 grams of protein into a food. What we also want to encourage is we want them to build a diverse plate, but we want them to build their plate well. I want you to see here, what I want to point out here is this is what our setup looks like at the union. And one of the things that we do at the union is we build a plate for them. We build a plate so they can copy it. So when they see the plate that we've created, that means eat this way. This is the right amount that you should be eating. This is the right amount of carbohydrate. Excuse me. Let me get a sip here. So to most people, this top plate would look like you're having a potato and a roll and tortellini with a little bit of chicken. That doesn't look right. That does not look right at all to the average person. But an athlete is not an average person. You saw that 300 grams of carbohydrate they can burn in 120 minutes. That is a typical practice. That is done. So if we don't build that foundation, making sure that they are getting enough of this foundation, enough of this basis, the base level, then we're not going to get any further. A lot of times I get asked questions like, should I be using a supplement? Should I be taking beta alanine or whatever it is? But the truth is, nothing will work unless the foundation is laid. So we need to start at this level. And this is the volume. Volume, a difficult volume. It is a full-time job to eat as much as a full-time athlete needs to consume. So they have to like it. This meal here, This was set up for the flyers during training camp. This was lunch. You can see again that we have our fruit. We're trying to get to 130 grams of carbohydrate. That is the lunch prescription. So we want to make sure that we're getting the nutrients that come with fruit. We have a large serving of pasta. You can see that half the plate is made up of the pasta and the grains. We have our vegetables, our fruit. We have our milk that has protein as well as carbohydrates. And look at the meatballs. They are not taking over the plate. This is not where the majority of nutrients are coming from. We need protein, absolutely, but we need less than you think we need. So this is just a picture that I just wanted to show you how we relate the menu that we use for the union. So the menu is match day -1, -2, -3, -4. This is backwards. I actually meant to have this the other way around. Geez. Okay. It's okay though. Not a big deal. But the point of this slide is not only do we manipulate the buffet to meet the needs of those match days, we also have this displayed on each of those days. So match day -4, I know that this is small, but you can see that we have a large volume that we want to come from slow carbs. So this is the day we want to really invest in high fiber. This is the day we get our fiber in. This is the day we get some vegetables and also our protein. Whereas when we move to, oh, bummer, here, we're going to go to match day -3. So 3 days to match day. Now we have slow carbs again, taking up 50% of the plate. We have more lean meat. And this is the day that we encourage red meat. So red meat, we have a red meat day. We have a omega-3 day and our vegetable portion. Match day -2, we start to change up the carbohydrate. So now we have fast carbs that day and slow carbs, meaning high fiber, fast carbs meaning low fiber. This is also an omega-3 day. So this might be the day that we have salmon, that's really high in omega-3 fatty acids. And then when we are match day #1, we are revving up. We are all about fast carbs. We are cutting down on the amount of fiber because we need that glucose to get into the muscle as fast as we can. We need to store it up that day. We need to make sure we get adequate protein and adequate vegetables, but we need to make sure those fast carbs, that's what we're doing. That's our main focus on match day -1. Does this make sense to everybody? Okay, so that's how to build the plate. And then we try to top it off. Okay, so 1 hour before training starts, we want to add a little bit of glycogen, a little bit, because everything takes up energy. Even just changing into your training gear or driving into the training center, this is all energy consumption. So we're using energy, so we want to restore that, and we try to make it fun. So making it fun is we put these little shots out. These are what we do at the flyers. This one looks like, I don't know what it could have been, maybe some sort of parsley lemon type of drink, I don't know. And then we have a piece of pineapple to wash it down with. And this just adds a little bit of fun to what everybody is doing. We also top it off game day. So on a game day, this is in the locker room at the Philadelphia Flyers at the stadium. So we have these boxes set up where when they come off the ice, before they go out for puck drop, there are a few things that they can pick from to get a little bit of fast, what we call top off glycogen. So these are our top off glycogen sources. One of the things that we really encourage is dried fruit at this point. So this is where a few pieces of dried fruit really goes a long way. So where are we gone? We've advanced so far. We started with 4 hours out from practice or game. We need to eat our big meal then. We need to really ramp it up with our carbohydrates. We need to make sure that we're getting enough volume in. 1 hour before we start our sport, whatever our training is, we want to top off our glycogen stores. We would just want to put that little bit of extra inspiration in there to give us enough fuel to last whatever the duration of the game, the duration of the practice. But then there's a special little place that people often forget, and we like to call it in-sport fueling. This is a term that we coined at the Center for Nutrition and Performance, and thank you very much, it was accepted into the Urban Dictionary. So now you're all cool. You're so cool. So if you start using the word in sport, you're super duper cool. In sport means that this is fueling during breaks, any breaks within sports and sport-related activities. So what does this mean? This means fueling, eating, restoring glycogen at halftime, between periods, between games. So this is a really important piece of the puzzle that can give an athlete a huge advantage. This is the setup at training. This was, I kind of snuck this picture. These are the Red Bulls. This is not the Union, down in Florida. And so what they had on their table for halftime were exactly the foods that we would want to see there. We have apples, bananas, Gatorade, and this is something that is often forgotten, but super essential to being able to perform at the highest level during the second half. And it's even better in case you go into overtime. And I believe you have to always be prepared to go into overtime. That is what this insurance is doing for you. So you want to encourage this. Now, a lot of athletes will say, I can't eat. I can't do it. I cannot eat at halftime. That's just not what I do. But guess what? The stomach's pretty trainable. So if you're training to compete, I say train your stomach to eat, because you need to eat to compete. I just made that up right now. So I hope Kelsey and Andrea, you're writing that down, because that's really good stuff. Okay. So you need to eat to compete. Oh, only I can crack myself up like this. So the thing here is, we want to teach your body to be able to do this. And when you're teaching your body to be able to eat during breaks in sports, it should not be during a real game. All right. We want to do this during practices. So coaches, you need to stop practice sometimes. You need to let your team eat a little bit of something, because this will also help them perform at their top, at the top level during practice. The harder someone can practice, the better they're going to perform on game day. And I always want you to remember that. So there are some methods to training that are designed to exhaust an athlete so that on game day, they can perform at their best. So we want to exhaust them during practices so that on game day, they are able to run further. That's not true with nutrition. Nutrition is supposed to help with that process. So nutrition is not try to starve somebody and dehydrate them during practice because they will perform better on the day of a game. That's untrue here. What is true here is coach the body to tolerate food so you can mimic those same circumstances on game day and perform at the best. My favorite in sport fuel, of course, is the Dragon Gel. I don't know if you've all heard about the Dragon Gel, but I developed them here at Drexel University. And Dragon Gels are 30 grams of carbohydrate, but the ratio of fructose to glucose is such that both will be able to enter the bloodstream at the fastest rate without any other nutrients there to get in the way. So that is 30 grams is the ideal amount that we want. So this is here on this side, the setup that we would provide for the Drexel rowing team during the Dadvale Regatta. So the men's 8 boat would grab their bag. Everyone would have their Dragon Gel right before about an hour before they would start the race. Same for women's 8, women's 4. You can see that we have all of these ready for them. That goes back to simplicity. The easier you make it for an athlete to adhere to nutrition programming, they're going to adhere to nutrition programming. Here you can see these are Dragon gels in the packaging that they come in, typically not divided out for each team. This is at USA Field Hockey. So we coined the terms pure and efficient because Dragon gels are not a supplement. They're a food. All that's in it is fructose and glucose. You don't need any extra vitamins during a match. You don't need any extra protein that will interfere with the digestion of the glucose. This is 100% fructose and glucose to get it into the bloodstream as fast as possible to restore glycogen to be able to compete at your highest level. Magic. Is there science behind it? Yeah, there is. So I'm just going to talk this through because I do like it. So carbohydrate ingestion, or in sport, it can enhance endurance performance. So providing adequate glucose, you have to, so this is the secret here. You have to have enough glucose to saturate the glucose transporter, which is SGLT1. This is in the intestine, and this upregulates the transporter GLUT5, which is responsible for transporting glucose. Until you saturate that glucose, the SGLT1, the fructose responder is not activated. So there is enough glucose in a Dragon gel to saturate the transporter, to activate the fructose transporter, which means that we are having two sources of energy entering the bloodstream as fast as possible. So this significantly increases the total carbohydrate oxidation rates. And you can see here that in a study done by one of my favorite researchers, Oscar Juckendorp, you will see that this study shows here, what we see is with a placebo, somebody was able to, let's say, bike at this 67-minute rate. But with glucose, they were able to decrease that time by 9.1%. With the activation of glucose and fructose, this time was decreased by an additional 7.6% over this 9.1%. That is huge, huge difference. Most supplements that are on the market, and I'm going to call them supplements because they add protein, they add extra like stuff that someone doesn't need right there during a game. You don't need that then. We will refuel with that. We will replenish later. But during this intense match, game, whatever it is, we need glucose and fructose. And the faster we get it there, the better they're going to perform. And most supplements that are out there try to add extra stimulants to it, caffeine to it, vitamin C. Why? It's not going to help right now. Pure and efficient. Okay. Next. Dragon gels were on the cover of the Philadelphia Inquirer. This is one of our students making the gels. Could it be the next Gatorade? I don't know. So then, after the event, we want to recover. So the goal is to now refill all the glycogen that was used. This is when we want to incorporate protein. We know that there is a time. You have 30 minutes, we'll say an hour after sport to replenish the protein and muscle glycogen, where during this time, it's faster. We know that exercise increases these GLUT4 transporters and also glycogen synthase, which means that if you consume glycogen, glucose, and protein right after exercise in that window, that 1 hour recovery time, it will be utilized more efficiently and faster. So that's why we try to stick to that time frame. Going home and showering and then eating is not an option. The food should be there for recovery right away, in a smoothie, in a peanut butter sandwich, whatever it is, like this, and then go home and then shower and then eat the meal. But this time is really important for recovery. So I talk about simplicity. This is how we do it. When we're at training camp at the Flyers, these are the smoothies that we make. They are put right outside of the locker room. So these absolutely exhausted guys that are getting off the ice after being demolished during training camp, and they do not want to eat anything. We have to think of ways to get them to eat without interfering with their lives. The last thing they want is the dietitian saying, come over here and try to eat something. The answer is no. But when you put a tray or this table of smoothies out that before you enter the shower, guess what? They all drink them. They all drink them. And that is what the role of the sports dietitian is to find these ways. Now, people don't always like that I'm moving furniture around and doing these things, but you know what? That's not my problem. Some of the other things that are just simple and easy and everybody likes is a plain old slice of toast with some Nutella and peanut butter and banana, right? So we're trying to keep things really simple here. Okay, so what happens when we start traveling? Then what do we do? Well, once again, we simplify. So here's an image of the Philadelphia Union when they're traveling. They get these little snack bags, and before they hit the bus, or, because they're going to get out of training, get on a bus, go to the airport, get on a plane, lots of steps here. So we want to make sure that they're refueling right away. So here we have little like farewell smoothies, we'll call them, and then a little snack bag that tells them how to eat the food, not how to chew the food, but at what times they should be eating what foods in the plane, with reminders in them, like we put wipes in there, a little wipe, and so that they can sanitize their hands. We put a tea bag in there so they are reminded to hydrate while they're on the plane as well. And then a few snacks in there. So we try to get them on this routine of knowing that they're going to have these, they're going to get this every time that they go on a trip. They can ask for special things if they want them, but this really sets them up for performing at their best, making sure that they're getting the nutrients that they need, and making sure that they're getting food that they need on a plane that might not be distributed on the plane, because we don't want to leave anything to chance. There have been times that there have been major delays. Everybody knows this. So what do? Are we going to leave our professional athletes hungry on a plane? No, we're going to reach into our travel fuel pack, and we're going to make sure that they get to eat what they need to be eating before they get ready to play. We're always packing for travel. Here we're at the Flyers again. So the Flyers, they do some training down the shore. Down the shore, some of you don't know what that means, but that's the Jersey Shore. Yes, the Jersey Shore. It's nothing really like what you see on television, okay? At least not at my beach. But they go down the shore, and during training camp, they spend one full day down there. So we pack them up for the day. We tell them which cooler is meant for before they start their training, which cooler is for recovery. And their guidelines are here. You can see we have different options for them depending on what they like. So they can choose. You want option 1, which is, I can't see what that is, but whatever it is, eat that or eat this. But we're giving them guidelines, and we're giving them options, and we're packing it for them, and we're making it super simple. We also make them little bags here, take-home bags. So what we're doing here is, when it's training camp, a lot of all of the athletes, in fact, are staying in hotels. And sure, they could go out and get food, but are they going to? Isn't it better to just provide them with snacks? So every night they would get a snack bag to take back to their hotel room. These are snack pouches that were made for the union because they were practicing in a bubble that was 30 minutes away from our training fields. So we would pack up the van with their snacks so that they would have them there with them. No brainer. You saw that we started off with those little brown bags at the Flyers. Soon enough, those little brown bags turned into very large brown bags, and we would provide them with a bunch of food because we found that, guess what? When these guys get back to the hotel room, they're hungry and they're tired, and this really fills a particular need. So we give them these foods, and we do tell them what they should be eating each night, but sometimes they finish the entire bag in one day instead of the 3 days that it's meant for. So what's the role of the coach here? We want to promote good nutrition on and off the field. So it's really building this culture. I'm going to keep going back to the culture and also going back to simplicity. We want to make things easy for our athletes. We want to let them know that we don't want them running around at the last minute. Food is not the afterthought. Food is the pre-thought. We need to put some time into making these decisions, planning so that the athletes don't have to think about it. You don't want to be caught off guard. You want to have proper planning. One of the biggest roles of our sports dietitian at Drexel, Andrea, is planning for the teams. I mean, when they travel, she tells them where to stop on the way, what to have on the bus when they're traveling, when they stop at a particular restaurant, what their options are, the best options to order. We don't want to leave it to, oh no, this place is closed. Now we're all hungry and we're looking for a place to eat. We don't ever want to be in that situation. We want to make things simple for them. Okay, who here has kids? I will tell you this. I will leave grapes on the kitchen counter, on the stems for a week. No one will eat it. I'll leave a watermelon. No one will eat it. If I take the grapes off of the stems and put it in a container, it'll be gone in 12 minutes. That is the same exact logic that we use when we're dealing with professional athletes. At the Philadelphia Union, on their menu, it is instructed, take grapes off stem, cut fruit into bite-sized pieces. Why? Because nobody wants that big slice of cantaloupe. They want it in small slices. And that's what we do. We make it easy so no one can say we didn't want it. We want healthy foods to look good. Okay, so that matters. It matters what it looks like. This is an amazing salad. Now, I want to dive into that. There are things that you want to dive into and things that you don't. Dessert? Heck yeah. You can make dessert what you need to make it. At training camp, we have individual little containers you can take away from the dinner back to your room, or we have these amazing looking parfaits, a yogurt parfait. I mean, it's delicious and it's a dessert and it feels good. And you can make it super fancy. This is one of my favorite cereal bowls I ever ordered. The cereal came out, granola with the milk in this little vessel, these perfectly plump berries. I mean, who doesn't want to eat that? And that's so simple to do. So making things look good, and this is not the role of the dietitian, and I'm going to leave this to Rachel, but I'm going to tell you that making things feel fancy is also an important aspect of eating. So what did we sum it up here? I have no idea what time it is. Okay, I've been talking for a full hour. I'm sorry.
We're a little bit over, Nyree, but
okay, I'm done.
You've got everybody hungry. So why don't you wrap it up? We'll see if we've got any questions. We'll let people run off to the fridge.
Yeah, so we want to focus on food. Plan your pre-sport, in-sport, refueling every day. Small environmental adaptations equal big successes. So that's me. You can contact me. You can follow me, whatever. So questions, anybody?
So good. So good. And I guess my question is, yes, definitely, Andrea, claps all round. how do we manage the need to run off to the fridge now and want to make something absolutely magnificent, knowing that food is our pre-thought, so it's probably not the first thought, but I love that idea of it being practical. And it's almost a metaphor for me of taking the grape off the stem. How do we make it easy, but how do we stay, how do we keep that discipline?
Well, right now, what can you eat? Are you asking me what can you eat right now that's not gonna make you feel guilty, Cam? I think that's what you're really asking me. So
Yeah, okay, you got me. You got me.
I'm going to give you my all-time favorite nighttime snack, which is a bowl of cereal. And I say that for many different reasons. Number one, it's easy. Number two, it's usually something that's high in fiber and carbohydrate, and it incorporates milk. Casein replenishes muscle the best during sleep, so you want to get that in. And casein is only found as a milk protein. And for all the moms and dads out there, kids can do it on their own. They don't need you to help, and it's an easy cleanup. So, done deal for me. Cereal.
Awesome, awesome. Kelsey, I see you've got a bundle of joy there in your hands. Do you have anything for Nyree? Questions, comments, thoughts?
I think she did a great job, as always. I'm keeping her grape secret in my back pocket. Clearly, he's not quite old enough for grapes yet. But no, great tips.
Thanks, guys, for being here.
And I see Dr. Zilma there hiding behind a mask. You look like you might be locked up there. Do you need some help?
I'm good. It's good to be here. Thanks for putting all this on camera, and you're a rock star.
Very good. We appreciate you joining us.
Welcome.
Rachel, are you available to show yourself so everyone can see who's up next? You don't have to. I'm putting you on the spot, but Chef Rachel is here, and she is next on the agenda until the two of us work our magic together. Right, Rachel? Cheers.
Absolutely. No, Rachel, we're looking forward to having you on next week, and then the following week we'll double everybody up. So we'll be fully equipped for the Christmas New Year period of some good strategies of how to start the new year. So we've got little creatures everywhere. Hello. Awesome. Well, Nyree, thank you very much. We'll let everyone run off to whatever they need to do. I know it's a little bit after 7 o'clock on the East Coast there. So again, thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. And we look forward to seeing everybody next week and Chef Rachel's presentation.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks.